Friends, Romans, Cardboardians. Love to see you. Now, I'm just have to correct Mr. Gray. Although Mr. Gray is a very important man, I do have to correct him. I haven't been here for 40 minutes. I've been chatting to Alan. I decided to go to the loo just to bring it to a head. Anyway, it's lovely to see you all. And isn't it great, because when Luke comes on, that means there's only 2 acts to go. Yay! So it's great to see you all. And this is quite strange. It's a good job I haven't taken any mind-expanding drugs. Otherwise, I'd be on a really big trip having you split in 2. I don't know if anyone else has had the problem so far. I just have to gaze at Tim the whole time, or Ken, and then that'll be fine. Brilliant. So, hello everyone. The SBA hotline. That's a picture of my phone. Do you remember? It's next to my quill. I've told you this before. I'm still waiting for more of your calls. Some of you are my best friends and regular punters, which is absolutely lovely. But please do remember that it is available as part of your membership, and for that 15-minute call per issue. And I'd love to have more of you. So do please try that. And also those of your team that deal with your people stuff, your people issues, also do encourage them to call as well. It'd be good to speak to you. We've had an interesting array of things recently. Exiting managers is always something which we can get involved with. Some of you may be old hands at it, but things do change, and there's an increasing number of legal risks involved. So if you are ever having to give anyone the old heave-ho or needing to think about it, then just give us a call and let us help you make sure that it is all done according to the appropriate ways. I've done a couple of ill health dismissal exits recently for the members of different types of illness, but both of them involved elements of mental health, which I will touch on in a minute, because this is increasingly common and not always easy to spot. So it's well worth thinking about the legalities of that. We've had a storming off-site. We all like to do that occasionally. With fuck you and fuck everything about your business. And then of course they come the next morning and say, "What do you mean I resigned?" I love those, and it's a joy. It's a joy in my job, and that's so we had one of those recently, and of course you need to take a very measured approach, because you have to play the grown-up, and then they want to come back the next day and deny having done anything, including kicking over the chair and tearing up things as they toss bits of paper over their shoulder and storm out. But we had the death of an employee, which is a very sad case recently, and what to do about that, and what to do if you want to pay some money to the deceased's family, and how do you deal with that, which was a sad one. And of course there are still a few COVID-related things, and I'm going to touch on that in a minute in terms of what to focus on today, in terms of where can I work from. So, just want to touch on this one. Many of you will know the beauty of the 2-year rule for unfair dismissal, which is generally you're okay at a dismissal without a worry of an unfair dismissal claim if the person involved's got less than 2 years from when they first started with you. But increasingly, claimant solicitors are trying to earn their money by coming up with different ways of saying that actually a dismissal under 2 years is unfair. There is a list of things which is automatically unfair to use as a reason for dismissal from day one. And I mentioned this before, I'm just going to mention it again. Things like whistleblowing, which is complaining about breach of the law or breach of health and safety or environmental concerns or something. Health and safety issues, pregnancy, maternity, and so on. And also, even if someone's got less than 2 years, it doesn't mean you can just simply say, right, you're out. Or, in a meeting, everyone stand up if they've got a job. What do you think you're doing standing up? There is actually an ACAS code of practice which requires a basic procedure, like having a hearing if it's to do with misconduct or poor performance or ill health, having a hearing or a meeting, whatever you want to call it, and letting them have their say and you have your say, and then giving them the chance to appeal. And it's less well known than it could be, the fact that that applies even from day one. It doesn't give them a right to sue you for a lot, but it can be complicated and add on a bit of extra hassle that you don't need. So you may be very, very used to this, but just bear in mind that these days there are lots of claimant lawyers out there trying to do their bit and earn their crust, poor things, and you need to feel sorry for them. The old thing of sling your hook isn't quite what cuts the mustard nowadays. Also, as I'll mention in a minute, there are lots more what we call what I'm calling hidden disability claims, where someone may have a hidden disability that you don't find out about until after you've dismissed them, and then they say it was all because of that, or my poor performance was all because of that, or my sick leave. So always a good reason to give the SPA helpline a call and speak to me before you do any hook slinging. And this is one of the reasons the disability claims are continuing to rise, and it's not disability to do with physical ill health, but it's to do with mental health, and not only mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, and similar, but also more what we call neurodiverse conditions, and that you may recall me mentioning last time. Which is things like ADHD and autism, Asperger's, dyslexia, and so on. We're seeing more and more people be aware of it, aware they have it, and getting diagnosed as adults, and more people deciding, rightly or wrongly, depending on the circumstances, that may have been the reason why their performance wasn't very good, or why they were being, quotes, picked on by their manager, or why they were too slow, or whatever it may be. And sometimes there can be some truth in it. There could be 10% truth or 51% truth, and sometimes there isn't. But it is really important not to find yourself at the wrong end of a claim, because they can go on for a very long time, and there can be a lot of anger, and that means that more difficult to settle and so on. A lot more disabilities are being discovered after dismissal, and I'm talking in the hour after dismissal, or the day after dismissal, or the week after the dismissal. And employees will be very upset and think, it's probably because of that way I have, or that inability I have, or that mental block I have about this, or the fact that I'm slow with numbers or figures or whatever. I'm sure that was part of it. Then they go to their GP or talk to someone, and then they go for an assessment for ADHD or dyslexia or something. And then if they get that, or get a hint that that may be the case, then they've decided that that's a disability and that it was part of your decision, and therefore they're going to potentially bring a claim. So in terms of what you can do, I think, again, each time you're thinking about a dismissal, it's just worth a quick call to the SPA hotline, which I've mentioned is free of charge for 50 minutes, and that often can cover something. And then just one of the questions I'll ask you is there anything about this person, or their demeanour, or the way they work, or what they've said, that means it might be worth having a look at this sort of aspect? The answer may well be no, but it's always just worth a quick look, because we don't want you at the wrong end of a tribunal claim. Work location. So desk-based staff, there's a increasing amount of resistance to coming back to work in the office. Has anyone noticed that? Yeah. Now, obviously, with plant, people have to turn up and operate it. Your boxes still need making, they still need folding, people still need to be bringing the material in, the product out. So there's going to be a lot of turning up for work still. But what's interesting to see now is that the early returners, people that couldn't wait to get back to the office, they've sort of come back. And then you've got those in sort of middling, and they probably have started to come back, or may have done a deal with you as to how often they do. But you also have those who are now really quite comfortable in not coming back to the office, thanks, and they're going to see how far they can take it, possibly with perfectly reasonable intentions. There's been a huge shift, and although you with manufacturing sites may not have picked up on it, because most people have still turned up to 50% of the workforce were working from home during COVID, and the vast majority of people liked it. There were some that didn't, but for especially those who had a reasonable home place to work, they often did find it more productive and convenient. And now productive is in the eye of the beholder, of course. But there is quite a lot of talk about how many people do find it's more productive because they haven't got the commute, and they haven't got the interruption of certain things. And if they have a quiet home, they can often find that, well, at least they can feel that they are more productive, and that why should I return? It can often be cheaper for them. They haven't got to put petrol in the car and do anything other than sit around in jogging bottoms or old jumpers with holes in, or whatever makes makes them feel comfortable. So they haven't got to buy lunch or whatever it may be. But of course, there are some downsides for them potentially, but also for you. It's worth thinking before you have a firm decision, or particularly before you take a decision on everyone must turn up again or you're fired. Do you actually gain productivity from someone, depending on who they are and what their job is, if they do work from home? Have you noticed actually, is there any uptick in productivity or a downside, a downturn? Is it actually cheaper for you? It may be that you're not looking at large volumes of desks, but of course some of the bigger businesses, especially in some areas, are able to stop renting large parts of extra office, square footage. May well not be the case for you, but there might be some benefits. Another thing that's come up a lot recently is that in what we call the war for talent, which in terms of recruiting good people and keeping good people, I think that where they can work is now going to be a big thing. I don't know if you've tried to recruit anyone recently and that's come up, or anyone's tried to negotiate some more home working. But certainly from what I'm hearing, allowing some working from home or even full-time working from home for desk jobs can help you retain good people and can sometimes be a benefit when you're looking at recruiting. It depends, of course, on the marketplace. But it is definitely worth thinking about. And of course, what you might lose from working from home. Anyone strongly feel either that people should all come back or that you don't want anyone back? Any strong feelings either way? What about anyone who's absolutely got no view at all? No matter. What's the general feeling in the room about whether you should be, desk-based people should be back or not? Anyone been asking for them to turn up?
We've got one person in an office of 4, and the deal is 1 or 2 days a week in the office, the balance at home.
It's a hybrid thing.
That seems to be working okay.
Yeah.
Because whilst this particular job can be done largely remotely, the benefit of actually eyeballing face-to-face with your colleagues is efficient and has benefits over working from home and using the phone.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are getting used to the idea of some hybrid working, where you can try and get some benefits from the previous slide and some benefits from this slide. It's a bit of a win-win, and I think that flexibility is going to work really well. There are some CEOs I've talked to recently who've insisted that everyone has to turn up because that's how they feel things should be. But they are not going. They're going to come up against some certain people they want to keep who just say, no, I'm really happy. And at least I'd like to spend Monday to Wednesday sitting in my pajamas, working from home, and look how much money I make for you. So it's not really clear as to how far you want to take it. Now, ultimately, the employer still decides where the workforce works. But as I say, if you want to keep good people and potentially attract others, then it's worth thinking about how far you want to push it. Also, there is a flexible working request. You may have come across this. There's a right to ask for flexible working. It's not a right to have it. It's just a right to ask for it and go through a process. The employer's got lots of reasons on a long list for why it can say no, which is great. But it's not just for part-time workers or flexi-time workers. The regulations also cover people being able to ask to work from home. And that's not really been used until now, but now a lot of people are putting that request in. So if you get one of those requests, there's a procedure and some legal things to jump through. So again, give me a ring if you get one of those formal requests, formal flexible working requests, and I can help you through it. And also it could be, I'm talking about disability, there could be a reasonable adjustment for disability. You may not know they're disabled, yet they may want to tell you in a private conversation. It may be a physical disability, it may be a mental disability. So sometimes it's worth just checking out what the situation is, but always it's worth checking out why are you making this request, what's behind it, rather than just, no, I don't like the idea of that. You need to turn up at work again. So thinking about how you might play it is worth considering. Anyone had anyone leave because they wouldn't come back to the office, or got into an argument with anyone yet? You're a friendly lot, aren't you? You're just like, whatever, just do what you like, because we trust you and it's all fine. A lot of trust. That's great.
I think Ruth had somebody.
Yeah, no, we've had somebody that wasn't able to work from home and taken the great umbrage of others being able to. That's been quite
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it can feel. Well, of course, there's a lot that may feel unfair. That's not going to turn into a claim. But when people feel upset, they look for a claim, whichever which way they could be.
They've asked us what our rules are around how people can and can't work from home. Requested long requests and stuff like that. It's been quite difficult.
Yeah, I can see that might be. Yes, again, it's not really a legal point. It's a sort of feeling fair point, isn't it? And morale can get a hit there. Yeah. Anything I've missed off in terms of important points? Because it's always good to get feedback. I've tried to cover what the employer may want, what you may want or not want. I think it's going to happen more. I think we're still in this sort of limbo period while we're waiting to see what happens. We don't know what's going to happen in the summer and then the autumn, winter, whether things will go backwards again. So it's still playing out. If one thing's certain, nothing is certain at the moment. But stay flexible and definitely stay close to that piece of paper on which you've got the SBA Employment Law Helpline number written, because if these things do come up, I want to help support you and keep you flexible and keep your legal risks down and so on. So, yes.
You mentioned it might be cheaper for them to work from home. We've had one or two people come to us and say, well, it's costing me more now because I've got to heat my house and pay for electricity, I've got to get insurance, etc. How do you handle that?
Yeah, there is a £6 a week payment you can make that the revenues say doesn't need to be taxed or declared, which can contribute. I guess the answer is, well, you only need one room to work from, so just get a little heater and put an extra jumper on, dear. And I think, although heating is going up, I think that's the idea that could cover that, and you could pay a little bit more if you want to. You don't need to talk to your accountant about whether it gets taxable or not. But I know plenty of employers that pay a little bit more than that, and then it either gets taxed or doesn't. There's maybe an expenses claim or something. I think you can do that, and I know that one pays a tenner a week for sort of overheads. But when you take off the cost of the commute, actually it often just weighs up. It cancels itself out anyway. You might want to make sure that if there's IT that you need to, give them or whatever. Occasionally, if someone's got a bad back, you might want to, invest in a decent chair, that sort of thing. Does anyone do health and safety assessments for home workers? Yeah, that is a requirement. I know it's a bit weird because it's their home and not yours, but you are meant to do it, and it is worth just occasionally getting whoever does your health and safety assessments just to ring round those that work from home and just have a sort of 15-minute chat and assess how they're sitting and so on. It's debatable if it went to court as to exactly how much you'd be liable, but I think asking the question, being seen to keep a record, of course, like so many things to do with compliance, is usually the answer. So anything else before I shuffle off for the final act? Otherwise, I'll be around in the bar or equivalent of bar, wherever we are today. Otherwise, how am I doing for time, sir?
You're doing well.
Oh, fantastic. Good.
Thank you very
Love
much.
to see you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.